Welcome, mid-hour photo editing lesson in black and white. No, we're not going to fail. There's no failing in this. So, when taking a black and white photo, a lot of times it's best to have it in mind that you want to be shooting in black and white. There's a few things to think of when you're shooting black and white. One is what you want your image. Um, Two is a lot of people just automatically saturate, desaturate. So this picture, when I took it, I intended on shooting a black and white. So a lot of people just think black and white, just pull the saturation down, have a black and white. But there's quite a few differences to that than what most people think. One is your black and white is basically contrast, light versus dark. And you can change that in a few different ways. Just hit that value. We're editing in Capture One. I like Capture One for a lot of reasons. We're going to go over that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make a few different images of the same thing. Where did I go? New variant. Here we go. Okay, so I have three different images. Now when I shot this, I shot with in camera, JPEG, black and white, and it does okay. Some people will say that your color has nothing to do with a black and white. Well, I'm going to argue that a little bit here. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to white balance. And the reason we're white balancing this, we're just going to pick a spot right about there on our gray dress. There. So if you look at this picture when you take it, one, this is just a snapshot. It's not a great picture. Her hand's cut off. Her other hand's kind of hidden here. Framing's not perfect. There's a bright light behind her. But what there is let's look at the contrast. That's where your black and white is. Now, if you look at how bright this is, so if you follow on the histogram of the selection over here, you can see that this wall is right in the middles. Her face is right in the middles. This is right in the middle. So we have a lot of the image that we want to focus on her, but a lot of this is the same brightness. Now you get your shadows, your contrast, but even through here above her, it's all in the middle. So when you convert that to black and white, you flatten the image some. So thinking ahead of time that you want this contrasty or how you want to isolate your subject needs to be thought of when you're shooting it. Now, we have these other two images, and we're going to go to an extreme since some people say that, this doesn't matter, that you're just dropping the sliders, is we're going to mess with the color balance here. And one of these, we're going to bring completely rich. Just overly bad, terrible, right?
That's like extreme.
That's extreme. This yellowish tint to it. Then we're going to come back and we're going to do a third one all the way down blue. Crazy blue.
That's cool.
Yeah, just terrible. Reason I'm doing this is in Capture One, they have an awesome feature for their black and whites. Is we can enable black and white, but it's not necessarily desaturating it because we now have all the color channels to mess with. So when you grab this red slider, you can see the red tones in the picture changing. See her arms? See how they go from black? Yep. So we're changing down through here, some other reds up through here. That little corner of the flower, yep. So that's messing with those. So we want to have her stand out some, so we're going to bring those arms a little brighter. Also notice that that's not changing this back here. So that's not lighting that. Right. Now we have our yellow. Now you can see that that background on that wall is changing a little bit, plus a little cast on her face and stuff. So going through each of these sliders, you can pick the colors in there. Now as I say this, the reason we did that first thing since they say color doesn't matter on a black and white, well, let's go to this complete red one, or orange, or whatever it is, and see how that changes things. Now, notice that back wall, just on that red slider, is brightening straight up. See how that is?
That makes sense, Jenna.
Yeah. So color does matter when you're editing in a black and white. So we flip back to this one here, this red. We'll look at that. That wall there that's competing with the same likeness isn't changing. So, and we can mess with the blue channel here. And I don't know if you guys realized or remembered, on that first picture, there's a blue light right there.
Yep, it's from our book.
Yeah. So
whoa, don't do that.
That can change that cast. Now the reason we're messing with that there is we can bring a highlight there, but that's just going to make your eyes focus there. It's going to bring a dark spot. It's going to make you focus there. So we just kind of put that area. Now let's go to our blue image. What do you think is going to happen? What's the red slider going to do? Change nothing. Okay.
Because it's a blue photo.
Very good. Do the blue?
Yeah. Everything's gonna change. And blown out to pieces. Now that is kind of cool. That's like perfect for like a Halloween-ish creepy photo.
Okay.
Because all you can really see is like this ghost here. You can still kind of see her dress, but
zoom in on it a little, make it a little bigger.
It's still kind of a really cool spooky photo.
Right. So by changing that color cast to start with and having this ability in Capture One to do things, you can make some big differences. I want you to focus on this background here a little bit.
Yeah.
See how that's kind of got some weird stuff going on there? Not as weird there. So and even less weird there. So you got to be careful on these, on what you're doing. So it's nice and simple to set this up to where you're white balanced, because in your mind it's easier to focus on those colors. You see it in color, so you can focus that direction, and it also eliminates this possibility later on where you're going to get these weird casts going on where it's adjusting so much more than what you want it to be.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can.
That is cool. Not that. Oh, that is so cool.
So you can change these other colors through here. See how that yellow has some to it too? So you can even bring more contrast. Shouldn't be much green in that photo.
There's a little flower.
Is there?
See?
Oh, yep. That one little spot in the middle of it.
Yep.
Little cayenne. Not too awful much. I thought maybe that light in the bottom corner would change some, but.
No, it's more of a blue.
What about magenta? Oh, wow, that light.
The light?
Yeah, it has some magenta tones to it.
No, that's blue. No,
that's
hey. Magenta on the end.
It has some in the light spectrum, whether you see it or not. So, yeah. So let's finish editing this just in the basic here. So we have her popping some. And the rest of this isn't going to do too awful much, I don't think. No. The yellow will do some, so we can see, but I'm not seeing much benefit. So our exposure. Yeah. I don't know if we want it brighter or more contrast. Contrast is kind of your key to black and white. No contrast flattens it even worse. Contrast can give you some depth and separation. So when you pull that up, watch her. Yep. Just kind of focus on her outline through here as you're seeing this. So what you're doing with this contrast is, if done right, notice how she almost starts becoming three-dimensional some. So I kind of like that three-dimensional look.
Looks
now,
like Ghost is coming for
Another really cool thing with Lightroom, or
Mhm.
with Capture One here, is in our levels, we can change each single curve of the red, blue, green. Now we know she has the most reds, so we also know she's right here in these midtones.
Mhm.
There's not much for highlights, so we can bring this down a little, shorten this wavelength. See how it adds a little bit there? Not doing too awful much. But then we grab these midtones. Watch her arms. See the cast? How it changes some of that. So you can go through, depending on the picture, depending on the colors and everything, you can change those. You learning? Or are you playing with the dog? Uh-huh. So
I'm learning Cooper Boo.
also you have your main curve,
Which is what?
kind of the similar thing as your levels here, except you can make this curve its own direction. So there's a lot of blacks there. You can put a second point here and let's say a third point here. If you don't want to adjust those, you can grab this point and pull it up. So that's to an extreme, but or you can bring it darker. You can make that contrast basically follow more into the midtones while keeping your midtones high. So I mean, you can bring that down. You can see the contrast of her dress kind of popping a little bit more because it's getting into those midtone areas. When you do that, though, by having this center point here of wanting to keep that, it's raising your highlights. So if you want to bring those down, you can that way. We want to reset this here because I'm going to come back another way, just a little bit more simplistic. Okay, so we're going to go to our main section here, and we have high dynamic range. This lets you focus just on those highlights. So this is going to adjust that curve a little bit, but it's going to give you highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. So now you can take these highlights and look in the window when we do this. We're just going to take some of that glaring edge off. Now with this camera, there's not a whole lot we can do. That's about the max. It's blown, there's no recovery just because the limitations of what we're working with. So that's one thing you got to watch for. Now, brightness you have in your normal exposure, you can take that down a little, but that's globally contrasting everything. So that's not going to work well. Right. Shadows, you can add more shadows, you can take shadows away, things of that nature. Blacks, now we see our blacks are already way high on the steep side, so our blacks are already black. You can add more to it and just kind of shut those areas off. Now, there should. Now another thing you can do is you can add a layer. So if we add a layer here, adjustment, let's say we're going to put this a Cara layer. So we're going to grab this brush. What's our size of it? Not a bad size. We're going to brush Cara. Actually, no, I want to do the opposite. Brush everything but Cara. So I want to erase that. Actually, we can just clip on this, move it over here. All right. So now we have that spot. We're going to brush everything but her. Let's make this bigger. And I'm just using the keypad here, which is going to make it, or the trackpad, which is hard to do. Hopefully you guys have a mouse out there in the world to do this with. But by doing this,
layering it, couldn't you just highlight the window and bring the brightness all the way down?
you can.
So we would.
Do you want to try that first?
Yeah, I think we should try that first.
Okay.
Well, could that work?
Oh, it's a small eraser, that's why. It's like, what is it doing? It's drawing lines. Ooh, there we go. That'll do it fast. So, bring this down just a little bit more. And let's go ahead and draw everywhere bright that we don't like, just to make this quicker. So we have this section down here, chair and table.
Maybe that wall a bit.
Just erase a little bit of that there. Maybe that wall. Well, let's try this here. So now we have kind of our mask draw on this spot, this spot. Now let's just kind of bring the exposure down a little. And always try playing with the contrast too. See how that contrast takes that window and almost gives a fuzziness to it, a haziness, a more, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. It's not working. Okay. Brightness down a little bit. Kind of fixed it. Let's work these highlights a little. Let it do its job.
Now, with it having just a little bright, you start on the edge of there, it brings her out more.
Brings her out more, huh? So let's see what it looked like before.
What?
After.
Whoa.
Now?
Yeah. So cool.
So editing in here can be very extreme. You can do a lot with it. Now you can also go in and, bring the rest of the image or just highlight her in a layer and bring her up even more. Or you can, do other things. You come back to global, you can add a little bit of vignette, which is going to again darken these corners or however you have it set, to that. Another thing I like to do is film grain. So we're going to put this on a loop so we can see when you look in here as that focuses, this camera automatically is going to show some grain to it anyways, just because one, we shot this at what's considered a high ISO for this. So you may not have to add any grain at all. If you do add grain, you can give it a different texture look. Like so. I don't think we need much of any grain. We'll add a tad bit. We have vignetting, clarity. You can always play with that a little bit. That's going to kind of define those lines a little bit. So,
like the creases on her.
right, or where it goes from light to dark transitions. You can also adjust the structure of that, of how big or how soft those go. So you pull this up more to where it's almost extreme. You can now watch that structure change a little bit. See her dress? Watch it go in this area here. Okay, that's at a minus 100 with that clarity. Now we pull that all the way up.
Whoa.
See how it kind of changed those lines, sharpened them all up, gave them a bit more depth, a little bit more to her.
Very nice.
So changing that to give those things, that again, extra layer of being able to see what you want to see can be edited in. Now, again, going back to taking the photo, one, you want to be concentrating on your contrast. If she would have been naturally brighter in this photo than the rest of the room, you'd have less editing. It would automatically pop more. It would just be that much better. Or if you wanted her silhouetted and have the rest of the room bright, that contrast of light and dark is where your black and white comes from. A lot of people think, it doesn't look that great in color, let's desaturate it. Also, you can't be yawning during a video. Did you write a memo for her not to yawn?
No, she yawned, and I can't stop yawning now. And every time I hear the
Do you always blame everything on your little sister?
No, it's called yonchitis. Yonchitis. Yes, it's an actual thing, and it's more common in relatives and family. Look it up. Jenna, look it up.
No, it's all right.
Look it up.
Don't look it up. You're fine. We're doing a video.
Drinking my tea.
Drink your tea. So, anyways, also other areas. Let's see if I have another photo that will work in here. As you can tell, I like shooting black and white through this here.
Just random photos of me eating.
Okay, like right here. This photo here, I think, is a good photo to go black and white. Why?
The house is very bright, not as bright as the flowers.
The house is very bright, not as bright as the flowers. So, plus, you have this red, crappy stuff here that is powering for some of that.
My eyes
so
immediately goes
if
here.
we just go where? Here?
Here. Like this entire top section.
One of the reasons, look at our third lines.
And 2/3 are on the two of your
It has this leading line right here.
Yeah.
It kind of powers through. It has this back here. So this composed this way is a horrible picture.
I didn't take this, guys. That was not me this time.
So, yes, horrible pictures do get taken.
Yes.
But now, since we can focus just on that red channel, we can, there?
Yeah.
And we can focus on this yellow channel, but that's going to mess with those flowers. But if we bring the yellow up,
there, now you look at the flowers.
Now the red down, or the green. Green gonna do anything? Nope.
Not much.
Blue gonna do anything? Not much. Magenta. Oh, they're in the back. Looky there. Some of those. Let's pull those up a little bit brighter. Now, this line up here is completely distracting. We're just going to start.
Blur it.
Now we're going to
cut it.
Crop it out.
That's what I meant by cut it.
Cut it. Cut it. Crop it.
Shrink it.
Shrink it. It doesn't do anything for the photo at all. Move that over and decide what colors of what we want in there. If we want to bring that back to a thirds line, third, squared off. See how that looks.
Since there's like 4/3, shouldn't it be quadruplets?
No, you're thinking in fourths, because you have 1/3 of the picture this way, 1/3 of the picture this way, 1/3, or 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, which then you have your PowerPoints and your sections here.
Now, if you added an extra line of 3, then it would be.
Okay, you'll have to argue with someone else because it's not my teaching. I'm just copying people. So.
Okay. So who do I have to argue with?
I don't know. The community. I want to drop these highlights down a little bit to kind of let those flowers naturally pop. And it also takes this background down a little bit. Then you could do a layer again and lower that contrast or that brightness. And we'll just put back so we know what it is. Oh, hitting things wrong. You have to highlight that. There we go. Hitting keyboard shortcuts. Here, ooh, big spot.
Those sounds make the editing better.
Yes. Pew, pew, pew.
You're not shooting, you're swiping. It'd be more of a.
Oh, okay. Well, totally swipe it then. Highlights aren't doing a whole lot there. So let's go to exposure. Woo.
Whoa.
Aggressive.
Very aggressive.
Let's bring that up where it's not quite so creepy like. And you can add or take away contrast. Take away contrast.
He needs to go out. Mom's asleep.
It takes away some of those defining lines back there.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit. Lights changing around.
I need to figure out how to fix that.
And then let's try brightness a little maybe. See? So you can readjust your focus a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You can go from that to that.
I think they'd both be. I like this one better with the not black and white but cut. Because
Okay.
I'm going more towards these yellow flowers here.
So we can do that, keep that layer by coming back over here.
Mm-hmm.
So we made those adjustments.
Yeah.
But we want to just take that off. Boom. So with black and white, without, but it's keeping those layers that not desaturated, that with the contrast down a little bit and darkened up a little bit. So anyways, that's a long video
on how to edit photos
on black and white, just kind of giving some ideas. Ooh, who do we have here?
Not me. And my Twinkie shirt. You can't even see the third Twinkie. What have you done? Gosh.
I have another one down here that's good.
Oh.
Let's see. Oh, that one there.
Me and my messy hair and my stick.
Your stick. Yeah.
Stick. I think it's on the yard.
Might be.
Go.
Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this. If you found it helpful, please give it a like. If you have any questions, leave them. If you have any advice you want to give us, or criticisms, feel free. We're only going to get better at this by you letting us know what you want, how you want to see it, what's helpful to you, what is better to watch. Still have a long ways to go as far as lighting and all that fancy stuff. So.
Yep.
Mics would be nice, all that good stuff. We know we don't have them. We know the audio is not as sharp as it should be or as clean. We also know we live in a busy household with a dog running around. What is this? See? Look at that. Can you see that? Yeah. So, anyways, you want to see more of the dog? Just let us know.
I will make that happen.
He'll pop his head up. See if you can see him down there. He's all kinds of weird dog.
I will make sure you all see the dog more.
Yep. But anyways, we got a Patreon page going. You can find this hopefully on Instagram as long as Bella remembers to post these on there. Our Facebook page at Mid Iowa Photo, Instagram's Mid Iowa Photo. Mm-hmm. Our YouTube channel is Fueled Iowa. Long story, but hey, that's where we will post this as well as our Patreon page. We'll have a link down below for everything, or if you'd like to just buy me a cup of coffee for trying to keep up with these guys,
or tea.
You can check out our PayPal. Any donation would help them build this business and stuff. So if you find it helpful, please do what you can, even if it's just sharing this video would be fantastic. Or leave a comment. Absolutely. So now if we can remember how to shut this off.
I think it's F9.